Can you explain what a spiritual director is to someone who has no idea of the concept? This is brand new to them, and also what a spiritual director may do.
Sure, LaShonda. So, LaShonda, I have a question for you.
Yes.
As a way to answer your question that you asked me about what is spiritual direction. So what is your understanding of the word spirit?
Spirit to me would be somebody that, or something that someone may believe in. Um, Sometimes I hear it interchangeable with God or higher power.
Okay, well, thank you for sharing that understanding. So spiritual direction is being with a person to deepen their understanding, to deepen their intimacy, to deepen their knowing of their God, to
Mm.
deepen their understanding, their knowing of this sense of having a higher power. So what is that higher power? So that's what spiritual direction is. So a spiritual director would accompany, be a companion to someone who's on a journey to
Mm.
understand their God, to understand the divine, to understand the universe. I think of spirit as that which gives life. Spirit, that which infuses and helps us breathe, help us move. And
Mm.
so I share with people that I'm going to companion you. I'm going to be kind of like your guide, your support as you undertake the journey into understanding mystery, to understanding life, to understanding spirit. Here, go here. Yeah, so
Okay.
there's a couple of ways. Yeah.
Okay. So that leads me to my next question with spiritual directors. How can you actually teach someone to become a spiritual director? Like I said in my notes, it just seems so natural. Like either you have the gift or you don't. How do you teach somebody to do this type of service?
Okay, so again, I have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
So do you believe that in order that it's natural to be a mom,
Mm-hmm. Yes, I do.
but can people also learn how to be a mother?
Yes, they can.
Is
Okay.
it natural to be a person who knows how to bake?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But can you also learn how to bake?
Yes, you can. Yeah.
Is it natural for somebody to be a gardener?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Can you learn how to gardening?
Yes.
You got it. So
You're right. You're right.
so I think spiritual direction is also a ministry.
Mm.
Not everybody thinks it's a ministry, but I believe that it's a ministry. And just like being a preacher, being a clergy, um, people receive calls from their understanding of their God, that this is the journey, this is the path, this is how God is inviting you to be in relationship to the work that you're going to do. So some people are called into being spiritual directors. Some people say, I like how this looks. I like how this sounds. So I'm going to go to school and explore, you know?
Mm.
And just like you can teach people, uh, that these are the right cups. This is how a cake looks when it's done. This is what a beautiful crust look like.
Mm-hmm.
You can teach people the skills to be a responsible and accountable, tender, compassionate spiritual director. You teach the skill of listening. You teach the skill of patience. You teach the skill of how um, to hold, to create a container for the spirit to move in. So
Mm.
school is a way for students to learn the skills that support the call that you've received from your understanding of God, from the divine.
Beautiful
Does that make sense?
explanation. Yes, it does. Okay.
Okay.
So next question would be, what would be the difference between a spiritual director and like a therapy or therapist session? I watched the video on our YouTube channel with you and Lauren. So I was just wondering what would be the difference in those two scenarios.
Okay. Well, something for you to know about me that before I became a minister, I was a clinical social worker for 30 something years, So I've been a therapist and now I'm a spiritual director. So if you think about the focus of spiritual direction is nurturing, growing, supporting someone's relationship to God, to the divine, to spirit. Therapy is about, many times, most of the time, it's about a person coming in because they have a problem in a relationship. They have a problem that they're trying to resolve. It may not be a spiritual problem. It may be a spiritual problem, but generally it's not that. And the therapist is oftentimes offering advice, giving resources to help person resolve that problem. It's generally problem focused. And spiritual direction is not that. Spiritual direction is not about giving advice. Spiritual direction is not about helping a person grow resources to solve a problem. Even though you might say to a person, I would encourage you to read this particular book about, Mary or Joseph, so it's truly, spiritual direction is truly in the realm of spirit and the divine, not about problem solving.
Okay.
Even though there's some things that are similar, like you might have a session for the same amount of time, there's sometimes it's an office. Well, there are not many offices right now, and the spiritual director would take some notes. So there are things that are similar, but the focus of why you're in that person's office is truly different. So I know sometimes in churches we talk about growing souls, growing your soul. And so spiritual direction for me is actually about growing the spiritual soul. And therapy may or may not be about your soul.
Right.
It's like solving that marital problem, solving those parenting problems, solving why you're not doing so good on your job, Woo, yeah. Looking at depression, all those kinds of things, yeah.
So with speaking about that, how did you discover your path to spiritual direction? You said you did counseling before. Did you feel called to pursue the spiritual direction path, or was it something that fell in your lap? You stumbled across an ad one day, or how did How did you?
Sometimes people do stumble into ministry. Sometimes it does feel like, okay, God says, whoo, and it just falls in your lap.
Right.
So I served a church. I was a parish minister for 10 years. And when I decided to retire from that work, I had learned some things about myself. I had learned that I really like being with people as they are kind of unfolding, unpacking their understanding of God, or their understanding of spirit, or their understanding of Allah, their understanding of Buddha, however they understand their God. I really enjoy being with people as they're like, oh, those aha moments. And so I really did. I went to, I don't believe in God, but I do believe that there is something quite astounding about the universe, that there is a mystery, that there is an energy that wants the best for us, that wants the good for us. And so I do believe in prayer. So I spent some time in prayer, actually like saying, okay, universe, okay, God, what's next? What is next for me? How do I use these skills that I have to continue to help people, feel alive in the world, to be more trusting, to be more compassionate? How do I bring in more justice? How do I bring in more mercy? How do I bring in more kindness? And the more I prayed, the better I was able to listen, the better I had an understanding of, I'm an introvert. Like, okay, Miss Introvert, what are you gonna do? I thought, like, okay, spiritual direction is another opportunity to serve my understanding of God and to be with people. I don't have to be with a huge congregation of people. I can just be with one. And I like being with people one-on-one. So that's how I came to spiritual direction, seeing it as an extension of my ministry, the call that I was already living. So this is just another piece of that.
Did you go through the Chaplaincy Institute, or did you?
I did.
Okay.
I did.
Oh, wow. What would you say is the most fulfilling part of being a spiritual director? What do you love most about it?
The part of being a spiritual direction that is the cat's meow, that is so yummy, that just makes me sing, as James Brown would say, makes me want to holler. It's just being with people, and watching them grow, watching their spiritual growth. And it's just amazing. And it's just awesome. It's awe-inspiring. I love that.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah. And sometimes growth is so subtle.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're in an intimate relationship with somebody, you can see those subtle growths. It could even be as simple as how somebody is holding their body, like when they initially come in and they're kind of like this. And then once they get a more understanding of who they are, they just kind of like blossom.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, instead of like,
yes,
they begin to smile, their eyes brighten. So I just love seeing that, and being able to reflect it back to say, like, LaShonda, girl, when we started working with each other last month, your shoulders were rounded. And I would have to say, can you say that again, LaShonda? Could you speak a little louder? Now, girl, look at you.
Right.
Do you use she pronouns?
Yes.
Girl, look at you now. Shoulders back, chest out, smiling.
Mm.
You look awake, LaShonda. I'm so grateful.
Mm. Yes, that is beautiful.
But it's just beautiful. Watching the spirit of God, of the divine,
so you
come
talked
alive
a little bit
in
about
someone.
your route to becoming a spiritual director.
Is
I
that
also
not what
know
we
that
want?
you have a background in civil rights activism. Can you talk about a little bit of the timeline of that? That was before your spiritual direction path, or has it came after? Is it still very active now?
So let's see. What do I want to say? So I'm 66. I've been around a little while.
Mm-hmm.
I went to undergraduate school at Baylor University. And this was, I graduated. So 72, I was a freshman in college.
Mm-hmm.
So, the Civil Rights Act of 1965. So a few years after that. And Baylor, I was part of the first group of Black students who came to Baylor University.
Wow.
I know. And Baylor is a Baptist school. And we were, I forgot now, we were maybe 20 students,
Mm-hmm.
In this sea of whiteness. And I joined this fraternity, so this social club called Agiza Funika.
Mm-hmm.
And I've forgotten what that stands for now. But we were all about social projects to grow our understanding of being Black and to grow our understanding of what it was like to be at this school where affirmative action, all of us got there because of affirmative action.
Mm-hmm.
But that was it. There were not policies. There were not social justice policies in place to really support the students once we got there. So it was really hard and it was ugly. Mm-hmm. I mean, the students in particular want us to be there, but it's kind of time. And so I think that those years, 4 years in undergraduate school, really ignited my fire around civil rights, around speaking my voice, around speaking truth to power, around I can't do it by myself, and the importance of being collaborative, being with the group on a team of moving issues. And it was so fun as a college student.
Mm-hmm. It was.
Growing my understanding around activists and Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks and Julian Bond and all of these people who were so, I don't know, but just so whatever this is, back then, just had, people who I thought were awake, Angela Davis, and so it was just great. So it was just so exciting and inspiring.
Mm-hmm.
So I've just kind of held that spirit in my soul. But it was kind of reawakened in a different kind of way. As a minister, I served a church in Oakland. And this church is in downtown Oakland, a very beautiful brick building, a historic building. in the midst of great poverty,
Mm.
you know, such as gentrification. And I was there doing the Occupy movement. So let's see, I think I wrote it down. So back in 2011, and the Occupy movement awakened me again. So this sense of, you know, that there's not social and economic equality for all people. And the Occupy movement was about that, you know. And there was an Occupy camp right down the street from the church. And I remember how excited congregants were to be involved. You know, so again, there was something about excitement. There was something about speaking truth to power. There was something about using your voice and being involved in something that we weren't really sure what it was going to do, but there was just this sense that things were going to shift, that a change was in the air. And I just wanted to be a part of that. And my job at the church, my ministry at the church at that time was all about justice. I was the minister for social justice.
Wow. Look at that.
And so being in the church, I had access to resources, and the resources were people, and the resources were a lot of white people who were like, okay, Pastor Jacqueline, we're with you, we're behind you. Okay, let's take to the streets, and prayer and song, and just the power of prayer and song and being together, in a particular moment in time to move a people. And I'm not so sure that we had much impact on the Occupy movement, but the impact on the people who were involved, it was just amazing. And so now when I am with people as a spiritual director, I really am called to be with Black and Brown people, to be a guide, to be a support to them growing their soul and using their understanding of God, of spirit, of the divine, to be actors, to be social actors in the world. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. You were a part of history. You did do that. Like...
Okay, LaShonda, I am old. I agree.
No, not history like that, but you did impact change. You did make a difference, even though you felt like it wasn't on a large scale. Like you said, the fact that you even helped one person or got in touch with one person, you did make a change. So that's amazing. I love that.
And that church was so cool because it's right around Preservation Park. And I got a chance to meet Fania Davis, who is Angela Davis's sister, because of the work that Fania Davis was doing. It's right next door to the African American Museum and Library. So it was just this time in my life and my career where, Spirit has situated me in this place, in this time, to be able to be in relationship with these people, with these places like the African American Museum and Library. That was just, phenomenal. It's just phenomenal. And, the Ella Baker Center, oh my God, just such juiciness.
I guess the universe just has a way of working itself out. Did you have any stories you would like to share involving your civil rights activism? I know you said it wasn't a good time. Of course, I've learned my history, so I know it wasn't peaches and rainbows and stuff. Do you have like a memorable experience that you would like to share during your activism?
Yeah. My mind is a little fuzzy. Maybe we can Google it, or you can Google it afterwards. Who is the kid that died in Ferguson?
Michael Brown.
Michael Brown. So this is a story that I remember. So I was still at serving a church in downtown Oakland. And I remember when Michael Brown was killed and all the rioting was happening in Ferguson, the church was just on fire to do something. We just wanted to make a statement from this church. And so people came together to make signs. I wish I could remember, LaShonda, how many people joined in the march and the vigil. But the church is too far from what we call Oscar Grant Plaza. And so we organized signs and people, and we went to Oscar Grant Plaza. And I remember we were downtown Oakland, Oscar Grant Plaza, and we created this circle. And at some point in our singing and with our signs, people just on their own laid down on the ground as if they had died. And they laid on the ground for the amount of time that Michael Brown had laid on the street. I mean, that was just so powerful. That people with no, it was almost like a prompting from God, a prompting from the Spirit, to have all of these people at the exact same time just lie down on the ground, to make this statement about how wrong it was about how Michael Brown was treated. And it definitely, after that, made a shift in the congregation. It was different. People were impacted by that.
That's good. Because I remember when we got in that trend, it was just like every week another Black person was getting murdered by the police. It was literally back to back to back to back. So
yeah,
I can imagine how powerful that was to witness, people going down to left and right of you as if they were killed. So
yeah. And that plaza, Oscar Grant Plaza, is named after Oscar Grant, who was a young man who was killed at the Fruitvale station, who was murdered at the Fruitvale station. So that area is just really powerful in terms of the vigils, the prayers, speaking truth to power, the gatherings that have happened in that place. And so it's kind of like, there's a spirit, there's an energy in Oscar Grant Plaza that says, this is a place that you come when things like this has happened, to let people know that, no, this isn't okay. Yeah. So that's the story that I would tell. Yeah. And, it's kind of powerful because first was the Occupy movement. Then Oscar Grant was killed, then Michael Brown. So this area was just kind of like the fertile ground to gather in.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's very close to the church. It's in walking distance. It's probably about 2 blocks.
It's amazing. But I mean,
it's amazing. It's amazing.
Okay, so service has been our theme, our quarterly theme. So I want to ask you, what connections do you see to service in the work that you do in spiritual direction and also in your activism?
Well, in spiritual direction, I see myself as a servant leader, number one, and being in service to that which is larger than myself, always, in everything that I do. My garden is about creating beauty, and beauty is a piece of the divine. My being a spiritual director is about service and how my fees are about service. Not everybody is able to pay. So I say to people, my fee scale has a bottom and a top. I really would have hoped that people could pay at the top, but if you can't pay at the top, we'll find some place, because if what I'm doing is about service, then how much people pay me can't be what drives me.
Wow.
So spiritual direction is about my service to that which is larger than myself. And my activism is too about something larger than myself. It's about civil rights, which is bigger than just one person. It's about policies. It's about bringing resources to change policy so that there is equity. And it's bigger than me. Activism is about being in right relationship to those who are on the margins of society, to bring them more to the center so that they can have spirit. People need money.
Right.
If you don't have any money, God is not going to pay your mortgage. Now, you may need to be in connection with people who can help you, raise resources. So spirit is about, okay, how can I connect LaShonda to Katrina? Katrina connects you to another person. That person connects you to, But all of those different threads of connection for me is about, in Baptists, in some churches, they talk about the hands and feet of God.
Mm-hmm.
You can be a hand, I can be a foot, but we bring all of those together, all of those threads, and it's amazing what can happen.
Mm. It is. It is.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's amazing what can happen.
It's amazing.
It's amazing. Maybe you're gonna entitle your article, "It's amazing."
It's amazing, okay? So yeah, that's going to conclude our little interview series with me and you. I'm so thankful I got to meet you. You are so fun. Like I was
I wanted to say something else about that last question, which I really appreciate.
Yes.
This thing about service. Now at age 66, I can put all of who I am in service to justice, in service to spirit, in service to divine. So I give very generously to causes. I volunteer my time. I have a sliding fee scale. There is nothing about my life at this stage that's not in service to being the change that I want to see in the world.
That's powerful. So, and I feel like the theme it just fits so perfectly with your life and your life story. And not a lot of people can say that. Even at the age, you're not old, but even at 66, like people still aren't living the way they would like to live. And that's not financially or anything like that. That's just whether that be spiritually, just in their day-to-day life, they're not happy or fulfilled with what they're doing. So that's inspiring. Thank you again, Pastor Jacqueline.
Thank you, LaShonda.
Okay, you're welcome.
You take good care.
Thank you. You too. Have a good rest of your day.
You too. Have a good weekend. It's Friday.
I know, right? Friday.